So imagine waking up on a misty lake, totally alone, right? And you look out and see a 15-story building just lying on its side in the water.
I mean, that's terrifying enough on its own.
Right. But now imagine that building lifting a giant seahorse-shaped head like 15 feet out of the water.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it's staring down at you with eyes that look exactly like peeled onions.
That is such a specific, unsettling detail.
It really is. Well, welcome to the deep dive. Our mission today is to unpack an extremely bizarre, hyper-specific encounter with the impossible. We are pulling from an 1819 American newspaper clipping detailing a massive creature in Lake Champlain.
And we are colliding that eyewitness account head-on with deep-rooted Abenaki oral histories.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we aren't dealing with, a blurry photograph or a weirdly shaped log today. We have sources describing a 187-foot entity with a bright red belt around its neck.
I mean, it's incredible.
And it's accompanied by an entourage of sturgeon. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it. It is an absolute catalog of the absurd. And what makes our source material so compelling today isn't merely the sheer, staggering size of the creature.
Right, it's bigger than that.
It is. It's the intersection of two entirely different worldviews. On one hand, you have the panicked, highly specific report of a veteran mariner, a man who was essentially serving as a catalyst for a media frenzy.
Yeah, the papers loved it.
They absolutely did. But on the other hand, you have the established indigenous folklore of the region. They had been describing the waters of this specific lake long before an 1819 newspaper ever printed a headline.
I love that contrast. But I want you to really picture the setting before we get to the monster because, the context is everything. Put yourself out on the water. It is early morning. The year is 1819, and you're floating in Bulwaga Bay on Lake Champlain.
Just a quiet, completely still morning.
Right. And our witness here is Captain Crumb. He is out on his scow. And I think we should probably clarify what a scow is because it's important for the visual.
Oh, definitely. People hear captain and think of, like, a yacht or a pirate ship.
Exactly. But this isn't a pleasure yacht. A scow is a flat-bottomed freight boat. It is a workhorse. In 1819, this kind of vessel was the backbone of early American industrial expansion.
Yeah, hauling heavy timber, stone, commercial goods, you name it.
So Captain Crumb is out there working, just minding his own business, and then the water breaks open. This massive black shape breaches the surface roughly 200 yards away from his boat.
Which I have to say is an incredible distance to still make out the level of detail he eventually reports.
Right, and that makes me want to push back right out of the gate because we are talking about human perception, which is notoriously flawed.
Oh, absolutely. It's terribly unreliable.
Right. I mean, it's early morning. There is mist on the water. The sun is probably just coming up, so it's casting long, weird shadows. 200 yards is like the length of 2 full football fields.
It's a long way away.
It is. Could the morning light and the fog have just completely distorted a normal event? If you are listening to this, you know that feeling when you wake up groggy in the middle of the night, you look at the chair in the corner of your room, and your brain is utterly convinced that the coat draped over it is an intruder.
The classic jacket monster. We've all been there.
Right. Your heart races, you panic, and then you turn on the light and it's just your jacket. Isn't it highly probable that Crumb's brain just played a trick on him?
That is the exact right kind of skepticism to apply here. Because the human brain is, at its core, a pattern recognition machine.
It wants to see things it understands.
Precisely. And when it lacks sufficient data, which happens frequently in low light or, through a layer of dense lake mist, it frantically tries to fill in the blanks using whatever fragments of information it has.
So it makes up an intruder.
Exactly. And from an evolutionary standpoint, it often fills those blanks with a threat. We project our fears into the negative space just to keep ourselves safe. Better safe than sorry.
Okay, so that totally supports the idea that he just hallucinated a log.
Well, hold on. We have to look at the identity of the witness. What's fascinating here is that this isn't a tourist.
Right, he's not on vacation.
Exactly. This isn't someone who rented a canoe for a weekend and gets spooked by how wind creates sudden ripples across a bay. This is a career waterman.
I hear that, but I mean, even professionals get tired. A tired brain can still hallucinate a coat as an intruder, right?
Yes, but the coat analogy changes when you apply it to an expert in their specific environment.
So.
Because an experienced navigator possesses a deeply ingrained, almost subconscious baseline knowledge of that lake. He knows intimately what a submerged pine log looks like when it suddenly bobs to the surface.
Oh, I see. He's seen it 1,000 times.
Right. He knows what a wake from a distant, unseen vessel looks like. He recognizes the visual signature of a sudden squall or what a massive flock of resting waterfowl looks like when they shift collectively in 200 yards.
So the lake is his living room.
Exactly. His brain doesn't need to invent an intruder out of a coat because he already knows every single piece of furniture in the room.
That makes a lot of sense.
For a veteran sailor to register a visual anomaly of this magnitude, the stimulus breaking that baseline has to be profoundly outside the parameters of normal physical lake behavior.
So you're saying the water displacement alone would have immediately told him this wasn't a log.
Exactly. If something that large breaches the surface, the physical mechanics of the water, like the sound, the sudden surge, the specific geometry of the wake hitting the side of his scow, it would immediately alert his experienced senses that this was an immense animate mass.
Wow.
It wasn't a trick of the light.
Well, looking at the anatomical inventory he provided, it certainly doesn't sound like a trick of the light. It actually sounds too weird to be a standard hallucination.
It really does.
This is where we move from who saw it to what was seen. First of all, the creature is described as a black shape, 187 feet long.
That scale is just hard to fathom.
It is. I want you to really conceptualize that scale for a second. Think of a standard 15-story building in a city.
Okay, picturing it.
And now, rip that building out of its concrete foundation and lay it on its side in the water. That is 187 feet.
Massive.
And out of that length, it rears up 15 feet out of the water. So this horizontal 15-story building casually lifts its head as high as a 2-story house, right there in the bay.
The biomechanics required for an animal to perform that action are staggering.
Seriously, like, how does it even hold itself up?
Right, to lift 15 feet of its own mass vertically out of the water and hold it there implies an immense, dense, muscular infrastructure below the surface just to stabilize the center of gravity.
You would have to be incredibly heavy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
It would be displacing tons of water just to keep that posture.
And the head it lifts up is described like a seahorse, but then we get these details that I am completely obsessed with.
A really weird stuff.
Yes, it has exactly 3 teeth. Not rows of jagged, terrifying shark teeth. Exactly 3. And it has eyes that look like peeled onions.
Such a wild description.
It has a white star marking on its forehead. And the detail I keep circling back to, it has a bright red belt around its neck.
The red belt.
A belt? What does that even mean? Is that a biological band of pigmentation? Is it a massive, brightly colored parasite? Or does it imply something almost unnatural, like it's decorative?
It's fascinating because the inclusion of those specific features completely upends the usual psychology of a hoax.
Oh, really? Because you'd think a hoax would be full of weird details.
Well, yes and no. When people invent lies, especially in the 19th century when newspaper hoaxes were practically a recognized literary genre, they rely heavily on established cultural tropes.
Like sea serpents from old maps.
Right. If your goal is to invent a sea monster to get your name in the paper or sell papers, you describe a European dragon.
Right. You make it sound like the ultimate predator. Razor-sharp fangs, impenetrable scales, glowing red eyes, maybe some bat wings. You give the audience what they expect a monster to look like.
Precisely. A hoaxer wants to provoke predictable terror. You do not tell the press it has exactly 3 teeth.
It's almost comical.
It is. 3 teeth is functionally bizarre. It doesn't sound terrifying. It sounds almost pathetic, yet oddly specific. And you certainly don't invent eyes that look like peeled onions.
That is such a domestic kitchen table analogy to apply to a leviathan. Like, why an onion?
It is. But think about what a peeled onion looks like.
Yeah, I guess.
It is translucent, layered, maybe with a yellowish-white, wet sheen. It's a terrifyingly vivid way to describe an eyeball.
Oh man, when you put it that way, that is deeply creepy.
Right. And the bright red belt, whether it's vivid pigmentation, an attached colony of flora, or something inexplicable, is a completely non-traditional feature for a mythical beast.
So the weirder it is, the more believable it becomes.
Paradoxically, yes. In the study of historical source material, these absurd, hyper-specific details often lend a strange weight to the account.
Because you wouldn't make it up.
Exactly. It suggests the witness is desperately struggling to articulate something genuinely unprecedented. He is mapping the limited vocabulary he has, seahorses, onions, belts, onto a physical reality that completely defies language.
He isn't reciting a pre-packaged ghost story. He's just trying to explain what he's looking at.
Just using the tools he has.
Right. But here's where it gets really interesting. And frankly, this is the part where my mind completely melted.
Oh, the entourage.
Yes. The creature wasn't alone. It had an entourage.
The sturgeon.
The source notes that this 187-foot beast was accompanied by sturgeon tagging along behind it like bodyguards.
Such a great visual.
Just sit with that visual for a moment. You have this impossible gargantuan glitch in reality, and it is just cruising through the bay with a crew of completely normal local fish.
Just local guys hanging out.
Yeah. Now, wait a minute, I have to ask. If this thing is 187 feet long, wouldn't an apex predator of that size completely deplete the lake's fish population?
You would think so.
Right. How does an ecosystem like Lake Champlain even sustain a behemoth without it eating everything in sight, including the sturgeon?
That is the crucial biological question. And the presence of the sturgeon actually helps answer it because it anchors this bizarre myth directly into documented real-world ecology.
Okay, I'm listening.
Think about pilot fish in the ocean.
That is exactly what I was thinking. Pilot fish swim right alongside massive sharks or manta rays.
Yep.
They get protection, and they eat the scraps or the parasites off the larger animal.
Yes. And sturgeons are fascinating creatures in their own right.
They look prehistoric themselves, honestly.
They do. They are ancient, prehistoric-looking bottom feeders. They are covered in these armored scutes, which are essentially thick, bony plates protruding from their skin instead of regular fish scales.
So they're like little tanks.
Little tanks that scour the lake bed for food. Now, if a school of sturgeon is actively following this 187-foot anomaly, it tells us something vital about the creature's behavior and its relationship with the lake. First, it confirms the beast wasn't acting aggressively toward the local fauna. It wasn't in a blind feeding frenzy, devouring the ecosystem.
Oh, so it isn't depleting the lake. It might not even eat large fish.
Right. And second, it points to a symbiotic relationship.
How does that work?
Well, a 187-foot creature moving through the water is going to churn up massive amounts of sediment from the lake bed.
Oh, sure. Just the drag from its body.
Exactly. The sturgeon, being bottom feeders, are likely following the behemoth to feast on the displaced food crustaceans, insects, smaller fish, stirred up in its immense wake.
A free buffet.
A massive free buffet. They might also be utilizing the creature's massive slipstream to travel with significantly less energy expenditure.
Like drafting behind an 18-wheeler on the highway.
Precisely.
That completely changes the vibe of the story. It transitions the creature from being an isolated phantom to an active participant in the biology of Lake Champlain.
It integrates it into the real world.
Yeah. It's one thing to see a ghost. It's another thing to see a ghost stopping at a red light in local traffic.
That's a great way to put it.
The sturgeon really grounds the story. But you have this scene of relative natural harmony, this massive creature and its fish bodyguards, and then you contrast that with the human reaction, which was pure chaos.
Like a collision of cultures.
Exactly. So think about this for yourself. When you look out at a massive body of water, what do you see? Do you see an empty resource waiting to be used? Or do you see a wilderness that demands respect?
It's a huge philosophical difference.
It is, because the reaction to this 1819 sighting perfectly illustrates two entirely opposed ways of viewing the natural world. Captain Crumb's story hits the early American newspapers, and it spreads like wildfire.
Sells a lot of papers.
It is instantly sensationalized. The papers whip up a panic about a monster in the shipping lanes. But our sources also highlight that while the European settler media was losing its collective mind, the indigenous people of the region were not surprised at all.
Not even a little bit. They had a well-established framework for this exact phenomenon.
Right. We're talking about the Abenaki people, who have inhabited and stewarded the New England and Champlain regions for thousands of years.
Yeah, their oral histories have documented creatures like this for generations.
And they have a name for it.
They call it Tatoskok. Their folklore describes a giant horned serpent living in the deep waters of the lake.
But the framing couldn't be more different. They didn't view Tataskok as a monster that needed to be hunted down by a mob or splashed across a tabloid to terrify the public.
No, not at all.
They viewed it as a guardian, or, crucially, as a warning. It is a completely different paradigm.
A totally different way of interacting with nature.
The newspapers treated the creature as an unnatural freak. The Abenaki viewed it as a respected, integral part of the world.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can clearly see the underlying philosophies at play here.
What do you mean?
Well, when the 19th century American newspapers label something a monster, they're applying a very specific utilitarian framework.
Like evaluating its worth to society.
Exactly. In that worldview, a monster is an aberration. It is a glitch in the natural order that needs to be either commodified like, sold as a sensational story to boost circulation, or it needs to be eradicated.
Right, because it's in the way.
Exactly. A monster inspires a desire to conquer. It is viewed as a direct obstacle to human dominance over the landscape.
It's a threat to the scows. It's a threat to the timber industry and the freight roads.
Precisely. The lake, to the industrialists of 1819, was a highway and a resource. Anything that disrupts the highway is an enemy.
That makes total sense.
But the Abenaki concept of Tataskuk flips that dynamic on its head. To view an entity of that magnitude as a guardian implies a relationship built on balance and boundaries.
Because guardians protect things.
Yes, a guardian protects a specific domain. It inherently suggests that the deep, dark waters belong to the creature, not to human commerce.
And the concept of it being a warning goes even deeper. A warning implies communication.
It implies a relationship.
Yeah. It isn't just a dumb beast thrashing around blindly. It is something that reveals itself purposefully. It surfaces when the balance is disturbed.
Which completely reframes Captain Crumb's entire morning.
Oh, wow, you're right.
If you view it through the Abenaki lens, this wasn't just a random intersection of a boat and an animal. It was an encounter with the lake's immune system.
The immune system, I love that.
It was a manifestation of the environment asserting its boundaries against encroachment.
That is such a powerful image. Let's just pull all these threads together because the layers of this single morning in Bulwaga Bay are phenomenal.
There's so much to unpack.
You have Captain Crumb, a veteran mariner who knows every ripple of Lake Champlain, out on a commercial freight scow. The water violently parts, and he is confronted by a 187-foot physical impossibility.
This massive displacement of water.
Right. It displaces tons of water, lifts a seahorse head 15 feet into the morning mist, and stares at him with translucent peeled onion eyes. It has 3 teeth, a white star, and this inexplicable bright red belt.
It's like a fever dream.
And it is moving in perfect symbiotic harmony with a loyal entourage of armored sturgeon. Crumb reports it. The industrial world panics and screams monster, but beneath that noise is the deep generational wisdom of the Abenaki, who quietly recognize the presence of Tataskok.
It really is a profound lesson in how the lens we look through dictates our reality.
Absolutely.
The raw data of the sighting remains the same. The massive length, the displaced water, the bizarre anatomy. But the meaning assigned to that data changes entirely based on whether you view nature as a resource to be conquered or a living system to be respected.
It makes you reconsider every shadow you see under the surface of the water, which brings us to the ultimate question.
And this is something you should deeply consider the next time you find yourself standing on the shore of a dark lake.
What's that?
Let's adopt the Abenaki concept of Tataskok for just a moment. The idea that this colossal entity serves as a deliberate warning.
Okay, I'm with you.
Look at the context of the year 1819. Look at the specific target of the encounter. Tataskok didn't rear 15 feet out of the water to confront a lone fisherman in a canoe.
No, he was on a scow.
Right. It chose to directly confront Captain Crumb on an industrial scow, a vessel specifically designed to extract heavy resources from the landscape.
Oh, wow.
This was the exact dawn of heavy commercial expansion on American waterways. The timber was being clear-cut, the canals were being dredged, the natural world was being commodified at an unprecedented scale.
The environment was changing fast.
Very fast. So if Tataskok was indeed a warning from the deep, surfacing right at the very moment the Industrial Revolution began to sink its teeth into the environment, what exactly was it trying to warn us about?